magic and explore the most. Stories full of wonder, fantastical delights. Open your eyes and see the parade come to life. Sansy's parade, Sansy's parade. Join the parade, Sansy's parade, parade. Sansy's parade, Sansy's parade. Join the parade, Sansy's parade.
Chapter 43. Old Faces. Levi watched Hanji give some orders to the other Survey Corps members. They nodded their heads in response and walked out of the tent. Levi walked inside the tent to see Hanji going over some reports before noticing that he was there. "Levi, good to see you." Hanji smiled. "How are you? You did something, didn't you?" Levi demanded. Surprisingly, no. Hanji answered. "Optimus talked to them last week, and they've been able to be more productive. I'm sure not everything is gone, but they're not crying during work or trying to hurt the Marlians in anger." Levi sighed in response. "I guess that's good. How have you been doing with everything?" Hanji raised an eyebrow before smiling. "Is the stoic and shitty Levi concerned about me?" "Shut up," Levi groaned. "If you drop, I'm not about to lead these kids." "You were never much of a commander," Hanji agreed. "Neither am I, but I'm making it work." "We both know I'm not cut out for the role," Levi stated. "The world lost a little bit of its luster," Hanji admitted. "The mystery, the Titans, the world, it's a little sad." "Didn't think you were the sentimental type," Levi commented. "I can be insightful," Hanji proclaimed. "When you don't smell like shit," Levi retorted. Hanji laughed a little before it died down. "What about you?" "Same as you, I guess," Levi answered. "The world got bigger, and we're getting smaller. What are we even fighting for in this shit world?" "I wish I knew," Hanji admitted. "Part of me doesn't want to believe that the whole world is against us. The restorationists are willing to help out. Maybe there is someone else that wants to help us as well." "You know we can't trust them," Levi reminded. "I know," Hanji agreed before resting her head on the table. "I miss Erwin." "Yeah," Levi said. Hanji hummed in response. Maybe he knew what to do. "I know for a fact he would handle this a lot better than I would. This is the world he wanted and dreamed about. The world he wouldn't shut up about in his training days, and now when we need him more than ever, I'm the one that's stuck in this stupid position." "You know it's because of Optimus, right?" Levi reminded. "Erwin didn't want to lose Optimus, so he gave up the position." "Erwin is more qualified and more experienced," Hanji said, "but I do agree with Optimus. How many more people was he willing to sacrifice for a dream that may or may not have been true? I wonder how often he has to think about that," Levi said. "I'm certain he feels guilty," Hanji agreed. "He's probably alone with his thoughts and his actions." Hanji stood up from the table. "I want to see him again. I want to bring him to Sina or here. Catch up. See how he's been doing." "You know he doesn't have that type of clearance anymore," Levi reminded. "I just want to see him again," Hanji proclaimed, "and besides, I'm the commander. Who's gonna stop me?" Hanji walked out of the tent with a little more confidence in her step. Levi scowled as he saw her scattered reports on the table and gathered them up into one neat pile. He saw the wings of freedom and sighed. He wondered how Erwin's been doing for the past 6 months since he officially left. Erwin woke up and sat up on his bed, rubbing his eyes with his arm. He debated on whether to change his clothes, but decided against it. It was still difficult to change with one arm, and he was rather comfortable with what he was wearing. Erwin yawned as he walked out of his room to go to the kitchen. Erwin saw something on the floor in his living room and blinked in confusion, his eyesight still not that great. When he got closer, he recognized that it was Kenny. He was as stiff as a board as he laid on his stomach, snoring rather loudly. Erwin didn't bother to wake him up and went to make breakfast. The last time he tried to wake him up while he was sleeping, he was 10 seconds away from getting his throat slit. It was not a fun night. So the solution was simply to leave him there and not bother him. After an hour or so of struggling, Erwin finally managed to finish making eggs for the both of them. He continued cooking as Kenny finally woke up and dragged himself to the kitchen island's table. Erwin handed him a plate of eggs and a fork, and Kenny lazily began to eat. "Thanks," Kenny quietly said. Erwin hummed in response as he made his own plate. This whole situation was definitely strange. His roommate is a serial killer, and he was surprisingly well behaved. Well, besides the whole situation where he tried to kill him in his sleep, Kenny wasn't trying to make his life hell. He was respectful of his privacy and actually kept to himself. Although, when they talked, Kenny had a really crude sense of humor. It was much more intense than Levi's, he'll have to admit. Part of him expected Kenny to be a little bit more aggressive, but he guessed that working under the king made some sort of difference in how he acted. That, or, if anything happened to him specifically, or if Kenny stepped out of line, Megatron would no doubt kill him, or maybe hand him back over to the Survey Corps. Specifically Levi. Damn it, he felt bad. Levi personally confided into him and Hanji about the crazed killer, and now he was living with him. So what did you discover? Erwin asked. Not enough to figure out their exact goal, Kenny answered. Sneaking around the damn place without being seen doesn't do me any favors. I can't exactly get all the information I want. Someone sees me, I'm a dead man. Did you get anything else? Erwin asked. I got a head count, Kenny answered, and that Yelena bitch is creepy. Yelena? Erwin questioned. She's been talking to Shorty and your successor, Kenny explained. She's no doubt the ringleader of the whole operation. We're going to have to discuss this when Megatron gets back, Erwin declared. Gets back? Kenny exclaimed. How long has it been? 5 months? 6 since we last saw him ? When is that fucker going to come back? I don't know, Erwin admitted, but when he does, hopefully we'll have enough information. You think he's going to kill us if we don't have enough? Kenny asked. He's done fucked up shit. No, Erwin answered. If he can't go to anyone else he can trust, we're more valuable to him alive than dead. Marley. Zeke saw Matthew without a shirt, cutting up wood for the soldiers to do target practice. He held onto the trunk as he cut through the wood with a handsaw, letting the cut wood hit the ground. He threw it to the rather large pile before proceeding through the process again. The Titan shifter walked up to the Titan as he threw another slice of wood onto the pile. I never thought I'd see someone as powerful as you doing domestic work. Nearly all of my home would revel in the fact that I'm doing labor, Matthew responded in his fake voice without looking at him. Starscream would love this. This is pretty amusing to watch, Zeke admitted with a small smile, but why are you doing this shirtless? Matthew looked up at Zeke and straightened his back before pointing behind him. Zeke turned to see Marleyan soldiers looking rather uncomfortable as they walked past them. I would rather have the humans feel uncomfortable around me, instead of allowing them to make snide comment, Matthew declared. So this is more of a threat, Zeke concluded. Implied, but they can't prove that, Matthew explained. It is a hot day, after all. Clever, Zeke stated as he looked down at the large scar in the center of his chest, but that large scar does go through your back. So? Matthew shrugged as he went back to cutting the wood. Someone might ask, Zeke elaborated. They won't bother to come close enough, Matthew proclaimed. Why bother? Zeke finally asked him. Why bother making a grave for someone you killed? You said so yourself. Berthold is an ant compared to you. So why do it? Matthew stopped and looked at Zeke. Do you think I care? Is that what you want me to say? Frankly, I don't know what you would say, Zeke admitted. Matthew turned back to his work. The Eldian warriors are more useful to me than Marley's military. Zeke raised an eyebrow at that. Marley has the most powerful military dash. Because of the power of the Titans, Matthew cut off. Without them, they are rather disorganized with inadequate weapons and terrible strategies in war. Gaining the trust in the Eldians, learning their strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately using it against them in battle, is much more useful to me than whatever Marley could offer. The secrets of the Titans would be one that's useful, Zeke retorted. But it would be useless if they didn't have the Titans, Matthew reminded. I suppose that makes sense, Zeke agreed. Enjoy your work. Matthew cracked an unnerving grin. Now I know you're trying to make me angry. Maybe, Zeke shrugged as he walked away. Megatron growled as he threw the saw through the wood, making a clean cut through it. Megatron saw an aberration of his younger self looking at him with disappointment. Megatron ignored him as he kicked the cut wood to the pile. Optimus saw Hanji slumped over her desk with stacks of papers and reports. Hanji had some of them due in a couple of days and returned to the walls to do it. Optimus thought that she would be all right, but Levi him that paperwork was never really Hanji's strong suit. Now he could see why. Hanji groaned as she tried to reach another sheet of paper, but sighed in defeat. Her gaze turned to Optimus, and she lifted her head in surprise. What are you doing here? Hanji asked. Levi told me that I should follow you, Optimus admitted, and that paperwork was not your strong suit. Science and research is my strong suit, Hanji proclaimed with a sigh. I was never really cut out for being commander. I was already stressed with some of the boring paperwork I had to do as a squad leader. Now. Hanji picked a paper form and groaned. I was really hoping I would have time this week. To take a break? Optimus asked her. That, and to see Erwin, Hanji admitted. Optimus was a little surprised by the proclamation. I just want to make sure that he's okay, Hanji explained, catch up and see how he's been. Maybe ask how he was able to handle the pressures of being commander. Optimus picked up one of the papers and reviewed the information. I could complete some of this paperwork. What? Hanji questioned. I could complete some of the paperwork and handle some of your duties, Optimus suggested, just for the day. Optimus, you don't have to do that, Hanji insisted. You're already doing enough. This is my responsibility. It is no issue, Optimus reassured. I have had my fair share of reports and data work in both Icon and the war. Many of these are field reports and budgets for the Survey Corps, correct? Yes, but Optimus, that's not your responsibility, Hanji insisted. Besides, I don't know how the other higher-ups will take it. It is only for the day, Optimus reassured her, and I will not sign off on any official documents. You deserve to have time to yourself. But Hanji trailed off. I want to meet with Erwin, and I know that you haven't exactly been happy with him. Hanji, my stance on Erwin is complicated, Optimus admitted, but I know how much he means to you and Levi, and that your loyalty remains with him. I am not going to stop you from seeing Erwin just because of what happened before. Optimus placed a hand on her shoulder. Enjoy your time with Erwin, and I will handle the paperwork. Hanji wanted to retort, but sighed in response before holding the hand on her shoulder. As your commander, this is the only time that I will allow this. Optimus gave a small smile, and Hanji smiled brightly in return. Megatron was called into Calvi's office as he was escorted by Magarth. When he arrived, he saw that Calvi had a rather irritated look in his face as he was going over reports. Calvi looked up at Megatron and set the papers aside. Matthew, I found the new Eldian that you will be training in replacement of Porco Galliard, Calvi stated as he handed him the report. Megatron took it from his hands and saw the name at the top. Udo Abadi, which confused him a little. This kid's not from Mali? Megatron asked in his other voice. He originally came from the nations we are currently fighting, Calvi explained. He's been training as a soldier for some time now. Bilingual, and good with a rifle. And he was forced to join Mali military or become a Titan, Megatron finished. It helps keep their allegiances in line, Calvi stated, you understand. Megatron wanted to roll his eyes, but resisted. He had to keep his mouth shut. Dismissed, Calvi ordered. Megatron left the room with Magarth following behind him. Calvi looked back at one of his other papers and sighed in anger. The Flying Titan's effects were still lingering on the powers of the Colossal Titan, because according to Porco, he couldn't access Berthold Hoover's memories at all. Megatron wanted to walk down the hall to his room, but Magarth got in front of him to prevent him from proceeding any further. Your insubordination needs to end, Magarth told him, now. Megatron didn't bother and walked past him. Hey! Magarth exclaimed. I don't take orders from you, Megatron stated. You might have everyone else fooled, but I know who you are, Magarth proclaimed. You're nothing but a selfish bastard who's no doubt hiding the fact that he cares for Eldians, or is one. Megatron chuckled in response as he turned to face Magarth, pointing at his chest. You are no different than the Eldians. Mali, Eldia, you're all the same to me. Selfish monsters with a god complex, and besides, you're the one who brought me here in the first place. If I do decide to defect in some way, that's on you. Megatron walked away from Magarth, leaving the officer steaming in anger. Meanwhile, the former warlord remembered that he needed to meet with the previous commander of the Survey Corps. He didn't trust Zeke, and hopefully they found some information that would be useful. Megatron groaned at his thought. Who was he kidding? They were humans. They wouldn't get him anything useful. Later that night, Erwin was talking with Kenny about the information he managed to gather when they heard a knock on the door. Erwin told Kenny to hide as he walked over to the door. He opened it and found Megatron looming over him in his holoform with a paper in hand. Megatron shoved the paper in Erwin's chest as he walked past him. Erwin shut the door and looked at the paper. What is this for? It was at your door, Megatron responded as Kenny came out of hiding. If it ain't the fucking psychopath, Kenny remarked. You're one to talk, Megatron shot back. Can you not fight in my house? Erwin demanded. I already had to fix the table from last time. That depends on what information you managed to gather, Megatron answered. I know that Mammal is up to something, but I can't pinpoint what. So we're on the same page, Kenny concluded. We know that they're shady as shit, but we don't know what they're planning. We were only able to count their numbers, Erwin continued, 20 total. Yelena is the leader. Some dark-skinned kid is her second, Kenny added. Oaken ? Oak ? His name is hard to pronounce, but you'll know who he is. Helpful, Megatron rolled his eyes. But the main goal is to get to Iran, Erwin proclaimed. Sometimes their questions are directed at the idea of meeting Iran, Kenny explained, but I did eavesdrop on Yelena and her second. Seems that she might have a bit of a vendetta against you. That piqued Megatron's interest as he turned to Kenny. How so? Heard her say something about the two of you ruining their chances of gaining their trust more easily, Kenny explained. Guess that gaining their trust would lead to them getting closer to Iran. I've only met that woman once, Megatron stated. She called me a god and said it was an honor to meet me. That must have stroked your ego, Kenny smirked. Tread lightly, Megatron warned. She called you a god, but hates you at the same time, Erwin listed. She wants to get close to Iran, and is frustrated at the fact that she can't get the trust of the Survey Corps so easily. I have no doubt in my mind that human would do anything and everything to get what she wants, Megatron proclaimed. How so? Erwin asked. She is exceptionally loyal to the Beast Titan, Megatron answered, and when loyalty like that runs deep, there's no telling what they would be willing to do. Sacrifice their limbs, their life, their humanity, or even sanity. That woman is dangerous, she cannot be allowed free rein so easily. Then she might hate Optimus, Erwin declared. Megatron turned to Erwin. This was hours before you arrived, Erwin explained. When we first saw the Beast Titan, it was reported that Optimus nearly killed him. That only happened because Optimus was told by the Beast Titan that the Titans were human, but the damage was done. That woman is most likely loyal to Zeke because of a life debt, or because she truly believes in his cause, Megatron thought over. She called me a god, so she most likely thought that the Beast Titan is a god as well. Until you and Optimus showed up, Erwin realized, your existence shatters everything she believes in, and as a result, she is much more dangerous, Megatron concluded. She will do what she can to retain the image of her god. Megatron turned to Kenny. What about her second? How deep is his loyalty to the Beast Titan? That's the thing. I don't think he is, Kenny answered. I eavesdropped on a conversation that he had with the Prime. He believes in a high power that created us all because he thought that it would be interesting. The Titan agreed with him and his ideology. This means that he is not as fiercely loyal to the Beast Titan as the woman is, Megatron concluded. He's able to adapt to the change, but she is not. Maybe there could be a way to figure out the motivation through him. Instead of Yelena, Erwin surmised, he must have had a reason to join Zeke and his team. There's still the issue of we can't prove this, Kenny reminded. This is all theory, and the way that creepy woman acts around the rest of them is still rather well behaved. He's right, Erwin agreed. You two are criminals, and I'm not exactly considered trustworthy. Which is why you shouldn't have gotten him to sneak around, Megatron hissed as he pointed at Kenny, an underground criminal who worked for the previous ruler. It's not like you're a ray of sunshine yourself, Buckethead, Kenny shot back. We need someone on the inside, Erwin proclaimed, someone who already has access. We're not going to get that out here, Kenny reminded. Erwin remembered the paper at his door and opened it to read it. Hanji wants to meet with me in 2 days. For what? Megatron demanded. Just to catch up, Erwin answered. See how I have been. Convenient, Kenny commented. You're going, Megatron ordered. That's an order. You can't just make me go, Erwin retorted. She trusts you, Megatron reminded. You might get information out of her that we can use against them when the time arrives. I am not going to use Hanji like that, Erwin swore. You didn't have a problem with using soldiers for your own gain when you were commander, Megatron reminded. Erwin didn't respond while Kenny glanced back and forth at the two. This needs to be done, Megatron told him. I came to you because of the lengths you would take to victory. Not because of a sudden moral compass. Get this done, I'll be back by next week. Megatron deactivated the holoform, and Kenny heard an engine noise fade away. Kenny saw the guilty expression on Erwin and wanted to reach out to him, but decided against it. It wasn't his style, and it wouldn't really do him any favors. 2 days later. Optimus, are you sure that you can handle this? Hanji asked the Prime. Hanji, I am certain that I will be fine for the day, Optimus reassured. Well, you do have Levi to help you, Hanji reminded as she pointed to Levi. If anything happens, I will come right back. Go have fun, Optimus told her. Hanji smiled and waved goodbye before getting in the carriage and heading to Wall Cena. How come you did not wish to see Erwin? Optimus asked Levi. Someone has to help you read Hanji's writing, Levi answered as he showed Optimus one of the reports Hanji was working on. Optimus narrowed his eyes to try and read the writing, but he couldn't. It was illegible. I see your point. Marley. Yudo's hands trembled as Matthew looked down at him with a strong piercing gaze. He gulped as he crossed his arms and bent forward. You're the transfer, right? He asked. Why yes, Yudo stuttered, I'm Yudo. Yudo Abadi. If it were up to me, Yudo, Matthew began as he stood up straight, I wouldn't have taken you as my student. I was ordered by Commander Calvi to do so. However, I still have the authority to eliminate you as my student if you perform inadequately. Is there a chance that I can catch up? Yudo asked. You will have to work twice as hard to catch up to the rest of the warriors, Matthew explained, and even then, they're not very good at what I've taught them. Hey! Garby shouted from the line up. So here's what's going to happen, Matthew began. You will train with Falco, he is the weakest. You will also have to observe demonstrations and listen to everything that I have to say. Got it? Yes, sir, Yudo nodded. Matthew beckoned Colt to come forward. Colt hesitantly got into a fighting stance while Matthew confidently got into his. Watch very closely, Matthew ordered. Paradis. Yelena was very confused. She saw the metal titan come to the campsite, and she was ready to greet Hanji to try and get into her good graces a little bit more. But she only saw that Levi came out of the titan's other form with 2 bags in hand. Hello, Captain, Yelena greeted, but was ignored by him as he continued towards the camp. She turned her attention to the titan, and saw that his human form was grabbing an extra bag. Where is Commander Hanji? Yelena asked the Prime. She has some business to take care of in Wall Cena, Optimus answered. For today, it will just be me and Levi. I see, Yelena Millie responded. Would you like some help with the bags? I do appreciate the offer, but I can handle this, Optimus told her as he walked to the campsite. Yelena thought this information as she followed the titan. Maybe this might be an opportunity to get closer to Eren. She shook her head. Levi was still in the picture, and she had no idea how to get past Optimus. She still might be able to get something done, but she would have to patient. Nile yawned as he went over his own papers. The entire world literally changed, but his paperwork was still the same. The military police never really dealt with any changes in the outside, however, there has been a massive reform that essentially eliminated nearly every corrupt MP official, which was a lot. Nile heard loud chatter and groaned. He didn't want to deal with Hanji, not when he had a bunch of work to do. He glanced at the door, and then raised his head in shock when he saw Erwin walking alongside Hanji. Nile ignored his papers and ran to the door. Erwin? Nile called out. Hey, Nile, Hanji greeted while Erwin Millie stared. I'm taking a day off, and I wanted to spend it with Erwin. Catch up and all. Oh, Nile Millie responded. It's good to see you, Erwin said. Yeah, you too, Nile replied. Nile watched Hanji continue to talk with Erwin as they walked down the hall. He hadn't really seen him after the coup, and was confused as to why he resigned his position as commander in the first place. He sacrificed so much to get there. Nile walked back to his papers and continued to work. Maybe if he could get enough done, he could actually talk to him and see how he was. He never really agreed with him on many situations, but he was still a good man at heart. Marley. Megatron watched from the balcony as the children he was now responsible for were going through another training exercise. He glanced over to his right to see Calvi walking over to him. I have a list of other chores you need to do, Calvi declared as he handed him a sheet of paper. Megatron took the paper from his hands and wanted to make a pass in anger, but he couldn't because of their agreement. Megatron Millie shoved the paper into his pocket and continued to look down at the children. Not even a pass in anger, Calvi noted. We had an agreement, Megatron reminded in his other vernacular. I'm sure that if I violate it, our deal is off. You're an odd man, Calvi proclaimed, risking your time for Eldian demons. A mere day of mourning in exchange for 3 months of what is practically community service. Well, where I'm from, we never got the chance to bury our own, Megatron admitted. Calvi almost wanted to retort, but even he found that morbid. Do you know what happened to the body? Not really, Megatron answered, probably fed to animals, or thrown down a ravine or cave. I just don't see the practicality of offering makeshift burial site for Eldians. They eat their own when they turn into Titans anyway, Calvi explained. But they still grieve for their loved ones, Megatron retorted. Why are you kind to the Eldians? Calvi asked Megatron. Megatron looked at Calvi. Why do you ask? Curious, Calvi admitted. You do understand that if given the option, Eldians would destroy the world once more. Maybe the ones on the island, but from what I've seen here, the Eldians don't want to, Megatron retorted. You'd be surprised, Calvi proclaimed, had a group called the Eldian Restorationists that wanted to overthrow Mali. But back on topic, why are you kind to the Eldians? You buy them food, you have normal conversations with them, you treat them as if they're humans. Why? Megatron thought it over. I guess it's because I've been treated as a monster. You don't seem like a monster, Calvi reasoned, earning a chuckle from the Titan. The scars on my face and my red eyes would beg to differ, Megatron declared. I've always been called a freak, or a devil, or a monster. Plus I've killed a lot of people. So what makes them different? Calvi asked. Understanding, Megatron answered. I know what it's like to be a monster. They've been and are still treated like monsters. Guess I find comfort in the fact to find someone with a similar experience. Besides, there are worse monsters than actual Eldians. Maybe comforting them makes you feel better about yourself, Calvi harshly stated. A freak like you finds solace and praise in other demons like yourself. Maybe, Megatron admitted. I haven't exactly decided. Trust is something I hate. I always keep my distance. I'm not exactly sure if I actually care for others. Is that why you're so insistent on leaving? Calvi asked. Megatron nodded his head. The less attachments, the better. I don't have to feel sentimental and worry about someone who wouldn't care for my life. Attachments make us humans, Calvi proclaimed. Compassion makes us different from the Eldian devils. And yet you treat Eldian children like dirt, even though they've done nothing wrong at all, Megatron retorted, blaming it on their ancestors, even though they wouldn't do the same acts now. How can you be so sure that they wouldn't? Calvi asked. How can you be so sure they would? Megatron countered. Calvi sighed. Even if they didn't want to, that doesn't change the fact that they can turn into monsters that devour humans. That fear will always be there, and the resentment will remain as well. The only way for there to be peace in this world is if the Eldians are gone forever. Once Eldians are no longer useful, the world leaders have a secret agreement to execute them all. They signed it and everything. So no matter how you treat them, it won't change the fact that they will be killed. Don't bother wasting your breath on them. Why are you telling me this? Megatron asked. Because you're nobody, Calvi answered. You're in no position of power to change the way the world thinks or feels. It's pointless to try to change anything. And if you told them, they would most likely freak out, and we'd have to turn them into Titans for the war. You're a rather cruel man, Megatron proclaimed. It's more realistic than cruel, Calvi retorted as he walked away from Megatron. The world will never accept Eldians. Megatron turned back to the children. The human did bring up a point. The unfettered hatred towards the Eldians wouldn't go away if they somehow managed to get the powers of the founding Titan, or if the power of the Titans were completely eliminated. The only reason Paradis has survived this long was because of the ultimatum created a century ago. But a part of him felt odd. Part of him felt odd saying those words to Calvi and defending the Eldians. If anything, he would most likely be on the humans' side, because the power of the Titans now posed a threat to Cybertronians. He would have turned on the humans once they were gone, but why did he feel this way? Megatron reflected back on his time with the humans on Paradis. From the coup, to Prime's pet nearly taking his life, and the aftermath of learning the truth about the outside, Megatron sighed to himself. Just ignore it. Ignore these feelings. Megatron saw the aberration of his younger self and grimaced. Ignore it. Levi was going over one of the report while Optimus was writing something down. Levi glanced up from the paper to see Optimus writing in different symbols. Levi saw Optimus go back to one of the papers and realized that he was going over budget numbers and costs. Prime, what the hell are you writing? Levi asked. Optimus's concentration was broken as he looked up at Levi. Excuse me. Levi tilted his head over to the paper he was writing on. Optimus looked down to his writing. My calculations for the Survey Corps budget, Optimus answered. But why is the writing shit? Levi demanded. I thought that Hanji's writing was bad. The writing is in my home language, Optimus explained, and it is legible. This is merely a precautionary measure in the event of prying eyes. Levi didn't respond to that. They had sensitive documents in this tent, and not so trustworthy restorationists right outside. He supposed that it is good that the Prime knows more than one language. I'm not certain about some of these documents, Optimus admitted. I know that I'm not allowed to sign any of these documents. Do I try to summarize it for Hanji? If you can, Levi shrugged. She was never really good with paperwork. I do hope that she is able to relax with Erwin, Optimus said as he read through the papers once more. Kind of thought you hated Erwin's guts, Levi admitted. Optimus raised his head to face Levi. Why would you think that? From what I got, you threatened to not follow Erwin's orders anymore, Levi explained. He resigned because he didn't want you to leave and humanity to pay for it. I was not going to leave, Optimus retorted. I just couldn't follow someone who had other selfish intentions. Do you hate him for it? Levi asked bluntly. I do not hate him, Optimus answered. If anything, I do understand why he did it. He wanted to prove a dream that got his father killed. The problem was the decision-making that ultimately ended up killing his comrades. I cannot trust someone who is making decisions based on a selfish intent. You're saying you didn't make a decision out of a selfish intent? Levi asked. Some have made the argument for that, Optimus admitted, remembering the time Ratchet was using synthetic energon, and how he called Optimus out for not ending the war sooner. But it matters what happens at the end of the day, Levi assumed. What are we really fighting for? That type of nonsense. Optimus stared at Levi. Do you wish to see Erwin? I don't know if I'm ready for that, Levi admitted. Guess I'm on the same boat as you. I trusted him, I still do, but now I don't know what to think. If it was still the context of the mindless titans, I probably would have still supported Erwin. It's not like those shit-eating faces had any morality to begin with. And now? Optimus asked. I don't know, Levi answered. Levi stood up from his chair and abandoned the papers to the table. I'm going to get something to drink. Optimus watched Levi leave the room before returning to the papers. Erwin listened to Hanji's tangents and ramblings about what's been happening since he's officially left. From the information about Mali to the information on the ship up north and the Malians on their shores. Pixis and Zachary came by to say hello, but they didn't really stick around since they had their own planes to take care of. Unfortunately, none of the information that Hanji was talking about was exactly useful. Some was information that Kenny already relayed or was already published in the newspaper. The information about the Cybertronian ship was useless to him because it wasn't his main objective. Besides, Megatron knew more about it than he did. The problem was that Hanji was just as in the dark as everyone else. She was keeping her distance from Yelena and the others and not trusting them so blindly. She was playing it slow and safe, which was a good idea in this scenario. He would give her credit for that. Sorry, I've been rambling, Hanji apologized. It probably sounds dumb. No, Erwin disagreed. You can't talk about any of this with your subordinates anyway. Wouldn't be a good sign as commander when it looks like I don't know what to do, Hanji stated. Puts me in a tight spot and causes panic for everyone else. I chose my successor well, Erwin told her. I'm really lost, Hanji admitted. No one really knows how to adapt to this change. It's honestly terrifying. Sorry to hear that, Erwin apologized. What makes it worse is Yelena's insistence on trying to gain our trust, Hanji continued. That piqued Erwin's interest. What do you mean? I noticed that she was trying to show us the military prowl of Mali through the ships we captured, Hanji explained. Knowledge of communication and ports that would have been a shock to us if it weren't for Optimus. So now she's introducing us to food and culture. Stuff that isn't familiar to Optimus and Megatron. It sounds like she has alternative motives, Erwin said. She really wants to get to Iran, Hanji said, but I have no idea why. They might have something else planned, but we have to be sure that they'd be willing to work with us. I still don't feel like they should be trusted, Erwin told her. Neither do I, Hanji agreed. Well, enough about work. How about you? How have you been? Bored, Erwin automatically said, trying to keep the conversation short. Really? Hanji asked. I never thought I would make it out of the Survey Corps, so I didn't really think about what I would do next, Erwin admitted. What did you want to do? Hanji asked. If you didn't join the Survey Corps, Erwin thought it over. Maybe become a teacher like my father. That sounds tiring, Hanji smirked. Because of the paperwork? Erwin questioned her. Because of the kids, Hanji responded. Kids are rowdy and rude and loud. You were no doubt one of them, Erwin concluded. Hanji laughed at the comment, while Erwin felt this sense of guilt rising in him. He hoped a conversation like this would actually be genuine, but it wasn't. Even though it was important, it was just for the sake of a mission. Optimus continued working on the papers when someone entered the tent. Optimus didn't bother to look up, assuming that it was Levi. Would you like some tea? A female voice asked. Optimus stopped and looked up to see Yelena holding a cup of tea in her hand. No thank you. Yelena shrugged in response. Optimus didn't know what to expect when Yelena sat in the seat across from him and began to drink her tea. Optimus continued to write, but he felt uncomfortable being in the same room as this woman. Megatron specifically stated not to trust her, and she seems very loyal to Zeke. He didn't understand why she was implementing herself in the same space as him. Intel, maybe. I wasn't aware you had military command, Yelena remarked. I do not, Optimus responded. I offered to handle Commander Hanji's paperwork for the day. I never thought that you would be given that kind of clearance, Yelena admitted. That seems a little irresponsible. Optimus stopped writing and looked at Yelena, thinking of a way to respond to this. If this woman was after intelligence, it would be wise to keep himself reserved. I did have Captain Levi monitor me, Optimus reasoned. Yelena looked down at the paper and saw the calculations. But I doubt that he can read whatever you're writing. These are just budget calculations, Optimus explained. Writing it in my language just made it easy to do. Do you speak more than one language? Yelena asked. Technically, no, Optimus admitted. We are equipped with a universal translator. It allows us to understand other languages. That is fascinating, Yelena stated. Optimus returned to writing the calculations. I would assume that you wish to talk to Commander Hanji about certain plans. She will not be back until tomorrow. Well, I did have a recommendation I wanted to make, Yelena admitted. Would you be willing to listen? Optimus put the pen down. I can listen, but I cannot guarantee that it will be accepted. I don't think that the Malians on the island deserve to be in prison, Yelena explained. They are prisoners of war, Optimus retorted. But they have never done anything wrong, per se, Yelena retorted. Their hatred stems from ignorance. They never knew about the island. All they were told was stories from Mali. Maybe if they were given an opportunity to live among the Eldians, they would see that they aren't devils. Yelena waited for the Titan to reject her proposal. She expected it. There had to be some flaw with this Titan. Something to prove that he wasn't a god. I think that is a wonderful idea, Optimus told her. Yelena blinked in surprise. You do? If the Malians are given to opportunity to interact with the humans here, then it might change their perspective in how they see Eldians, Optimus said. I understand that they have been taught a history that vilifies the Eldians. But I believe that the Eldians now do not deserve this horrendous treatment. I feel as though there is a but, Yelena remarked. That decision is not up to me, Optimus explained. It would have to be run through the entire military and confirmed by a council. As I have already told you, I hold no military command. I can only give a recommendation and hope for the best. I'm surprised that you don't have a stronger influence, Yelena admitted. I am nothing more than a passenger and a warrior, Optimus explained. It would be unwise for me to seek military command on a world that is not my own. And besides, trust is something that must be earned. We must be certain that the Malians will not harm the Eldians. I suppose you're right, Yelena relented, but thank you for listening to my recommendation. Erwin had a long day, but a nice one nonetheless. He did enjoy spending time with Hanji. He was able to talk to Zackley and play some chess with Pixis. But his overarching mission was a failure. He wasn't really able to gain valuable intel. Erwin saw the carriage waiting for him, ready to take him back home, courtesy of Hanji. He was about to get on, but someone grabbed his shoulder. He turned to see Niall panting from what was most likely running from somewhere to reach him. "Can we talk?" Niall panted. "For a few minutes." Erwin thought it over before telling the carriage driver to wait a few minutes. "What's wrong?" Erwin asked. "I just wanted to see how you've been," Niall told him as he straightened himself out. Managing, Erwin admitted. "I guess the change has been rather hard on me." "I can't imagine," Niall admitted. "I mean, I thought that you'd be happy you made it out of the Survey Corps alive." "I wish I could think like that," Erwin admitted before realizing what he did. Niall didn't know what to say either. "I'm guessing that the guilt of surviving is rather hard." Erwin didn't respond, confirming Niall's suspicions. "I just wish that I could find a way to pay them back," Erwin admitted. Niall felt bad for him. He will never know all the horrors of what Erwin saw or Erwin went through. He just wished that there was something else that he could do. "If it's any consolation, I wanted to say thank you," Niall told him. Erwin was surprised at the statement. "For what?" "The coup," Niall explained. "It was extremely risky of you, but if it wasn't for you, a lot of people would have died. Marie and my daughters, I don't know what would have happened to them. I know you think about being a survivor, but that doesn't discredit the good you've done." Erwin blinked in surprise before giving a deprecating laugh. "I appreciate it, but it's going to be a long way before I'm forgiven for what I've done." Erwin turned and got into the carriage, and Niall watched him leave. Niall clenched his fists before walking back to his office. He needed to go home. Yelena wanted to scream. She thought that she could get something out of the metal titan, but she couldn't. There was nothing. It irritated her to no end. Yelena took a deep breath. No. Their trust would not be earned so easily. The Titan stated that himself. She just needed to bide her time. Patience mattered right now, more than anything. That night, Niall yawned as he opened the door to his home. He gently closed it, hoping to not wake up his daughters up. He checked into their rooms and was surprised to see the girls sleeping. His wife, Marie, gently patted their heads as they slept on their beds. Marie turned to Niall and smiled. "You're back." "I finished early," Niall explained in a hushed tone. "You seem tired," Marie commented. "Go rest." "Come with me," Niall requested. Marie smiled and stood up from her daughter's bed. She straightened out her nightgown before taking Niall's arm into her grasp. The two walked down the hall to their room together, and both of them carelessly fell onto the bed. "The girls were being rowdy, weren't they?" Niall remarked. Marie laughed, showing the small gap in her top front teeth. "They always are. What about you?" "I'm sure paperwork is so much fun." "Paperwork is about as eventful as it can be," Niall groaned, "although I did see Erwin today." Marie rested on her elbows, her red hair spilling over her shoulders as she stared at her husband. "I thought that he left." "He was just here to visit by Hanji's request," Niall explained. "Well, how is he?" Marie asked. "He looked sad," Niall answered. "From the small interaction we had, it sounds like he doesn't know what to do with his life." "I can only imagine," Marie sighed. "He's been in the Survey Corps for so long. I don't think he remembers what a normal life is like." "Do you think Hanji noticed it?" Niall asked. Marie shrugged. "From what you told me, Hanji always focuses on Titans." Niall hummed in response. "You should drop by his place," Marie advised. "Check on him and see if you can help him out in any way." "I don't know if I have that right," Niall admitted. "He joined the Scouts, and I joined the MPs. We've been on completely different career paths and fought on nearly every front." "Did that stop you from talking with him today?" Marie asked. "I guess not," Niall answered. "I also owe him for the coup, and I guess I owe him an apology for the whole humanity outside the wall theory he wouldn't stop talking about." "You definitely owe him for that," Marie agreed as she rested her head on his chest and hugged him. "I need to change," Niall told her. "No," Marie pouted. "I want you here." "I've been at work all day," Niall retorted. "No," Marie said. Hanji gasped as she looked through the paperwork, surprised by the diligence and neat handwriting. "There are some paperwork that I was unable to sign off on, due to my position," Optimus explained to her as he sat in his bipedal mode. "I can go over it with you if you wish in order to decide approval." Hanji responded by hugging Optimus's servo. "Thank you so much." "You're welcome." Optimus gave a small smile. "Although, there is something I need to talk to you about." It was a recommendation by Yelena. Hanji looked up at the Titan in confusion. "You know we can't trust her, right?" I am aware, Optimus answered, but I said I would tell you about it. Niall pulled his horse to a stop as he arrived at Erwin's home. The secluded location didn't allow him to tie his horse somewhere safe, so he tied it to the nearest tree. He managed to find some time off, although it was rather late in the day. The sun was practically gone when he arrived here. Maybe he could talk with Erwin for a little, catch up, and see what he can do. He thought about sending him a message prior, but he felt the surprise would be a little more thoughtful. Also, he probably wouldn't have had the time in his schedule. It would have been months ahead. Niall walked up to the door and was ready to knock, but stopped when he heard muffled talking. That was odd. Was someone here? He didn't think that Erwin had any visitors. One of the voices does sound a little familiar. Maybe it was Levi. Niall pressed his ear against the door, and he realized that he could hear two voices, and they were arguing with Erwin. You were unable to retrieve any new information? One demanded. Hanji is just as in the dark as everyone else, Erwin retorted. There's only so much I can ask without raising suspicion. What was he talking about? Niall thought as he began to grow worried. We need information. We are running out of time, the first voice declared. It can't be that bad, a second voice retorted. Marley's only got one souped-up titan, right? They have two now, because they wanted to preserve the powers of the colossal titan, the first one explained. While it is beneficial for Marley to not have their hands on Dark Energon, they still have the advantage, and I have no idea when that monkey will betray me. We need intel and we need it now. The way we're going, it sounds like we're not gonna get it, the second voice stated. How long would we have to even wait? What the hell was going on? Niall saw a window with the curtain pulled back. Niall peeked over to see Erwin arguing with the flying titan, and Kenny the Ripper. Niall gasped and quickly covered his mouth, realizing his mistake. Erwin was the first to notice him, having glanced at the window and was now staring in horror. The other two followed Erwin's gaze to Niall as he took a step back. The flying titan gave a calculating stare while Kenny was completely surprised. However, Kenny was the first to react by pulling out a dagger. No! Erwin yelled as he tackled Kenny to the floor. Kenny still managed to throw the dagger at Niall, piercing through the glass, but not going all the way through, most likely due to Erwin's interference. Niall stumbled back in fear, trying to register what happened, but jolted as he saw the flying titan barge through the door. Niall watched in fear as the flying titan looked at him with murderous intent. Before Niall could think of how to run, the flying titan grabbed his throat and pinned him against the wall. Niall began to struggle and kick as the titan began to crush his windpipe. His vision became blurry as the flying titan still looked at him with murderous intent. He could barely see Erwin grabbing the titan's arm before being knocked unconscious. Hours later, Niall groaned in pain, trying to open his eyes and depict what was going on. He could barely hear as he felt like his head was still spinning. His mouth felt dry, and when he opened his eyes, his vision was extremely blurry. When his vision began to focus, he realized that he was sitting in a chair and that he was bound. Niall shook his head as he tried to hear the conversation. He blinked again to focus his vision, and widened his eyes to see his arms and legs bound to a chair. He tried to speak, but he also found that his mouth was gagged with a cloth. He managed to turn his attention to the conversation that Erwin was having with Kenny and the flying titan. I am just saying, Kenny exclaimed, cut out his tongue, slit his throat, dispose of the body. Slitting throats is your calling card. Megatron shot back, the dwarf would hunt you down. No one is killing him, Erwin ordered. He's an MP. Kenny retorted, those guys are assholes anyway. No matter who's in charge. The only thing that I will ever agree with you on, Megatron stated. Besides the fact that he is nothing more than a bystander in this scenario, he could have just as easily told someone where he was going. Erwin reminded, an investigation would happen in the event something happens to him. Niall tried to pull himself out of his restraints, but it merely caused the chair to tilt backwards. Niall ended up falling back and hitting his head on the ground. He groaned at the pain and the leftover sensation, but that was short-lived when the chair was raised and he was sitting upright. Niall froze in fear as a rifle was aimed at his face. He managed to focus his eyesight to see Megatron holding the rifle. Scream and you die, Megatron threatened in an ominous voice. Kenny cut the rope on his mouth, causing Niall to cough on his own spit. Erwin could only watch with concern, not wanting Niall to die. What are you doing here? Megatron demanded. Niall blinked in response before getting angry. Are you Dash? Niall tensed as Megatron cocked the rifle. Answer, Megatron ordered. I just came to see Erwin, Niall responded, trying to keep his composure. I had time in my schedule. I wanted to make sure Erwin was okay. I swear. I had no idea that you or Kenny were even here. Did you tell anyone that you were coming here? Megatron demanded. No, Niall answered, I didn't. That technically wasn't a lie. Marie recommended it, and he didn't bother to tell any of his subordinates. They would have assumed that he was going home. Well, it will make it easier for us to hide your body, Megatron declared. Erwin felt his stomach drop while Niall gasped in fear as Megatron moved his finger to the trigger. Wait. Niall pleaded, you can't kill me. And why not? Megatron demanded, I've seen your people work. You're nothing but incompetent, weak, and pathetic wastes of humans. If that one managed to kill 100 of you, I'm certain that you can be replaced. I can't be replaced. You don't get it. Niall exclaimed, I'm the head of the military police. Megatron took his finger off the trigger and slightly lowered the gun. This just became more complicated. If it was just a random soldier, then this would be a rather quick situation. You can easily be replaced by the next kiss, as Kenny jumped into the conversation. We're dealing with a very dangerous situation, Niall retorted, with the outside world trying to kill us all. Killing me could create a power vacuum and instability that would be negative if the island is in danger, or Zeke Giger somehow betrays us. You don't trust Zeke? Megatron questioned. Erwin could see a smirk forming on the Titan's lips. He was clearly formulating some sort of plan. I, personally, don't, Niall answered, not after what he did to the Rogako village. He turned families into Titans, and now he's trying to use his subordinates to try and get into our good graces. I already hear from Hanji about Yelena's insistence on trying to gain our trust. Megatron grinned as he completely lowered the rifle. You meet with the mad scientist. Mad Sien, you mean Hanji? Niall exclaimed. Answer the question, Kenny hissed. Niall could see the concern on Erwin's face, but if he didn't answer, he might be killed sooner. Yes, Niall answered, I do. All the commanders have weekly meetings, and it's only just the commanders. Well, it seems that you do have some use after all, Megatron declared. He's an MP. Kenny exclaimed. The highest commanding MP who can directly feed us information that is withheld from the public, Megatron retorted, causing Niall to tense. You want me to break the law for you, and Kenny the Ripper? Niall demanded. I'm going to make a guess it's either that or death then. You catch on fairly quickly, Megatron commented. What is this even for? Niall demanded. You don't trust Zeke Giger, Megatron began, neither do we. If he was willing to turn his creators over to Marley and turn your own into Titans, I have no doubt in my mind he will betray the island when it suits him. I'm assembling a team to counteract Zeke in the event that time comes. Can I poke some holes into this stupid plan? Niall demanded, one of them being, why the hell don't you tell any actual government officials? Aren't you and Optimus friends at the very least? Kenny busted out laughing while Megatron rolled his eyes. It would be dangerous to involve someone actively interacting with Zeke or any of his associates, Megatron retorted. Optimus was never one for secrets and deception. And the mad scientist has a difficult time in actually keeping her mouth shut. So the next best thing was getting Kenny the fucking Ripper, Niall emphasized. That was his idea, Megatron pointed to Erwin. Niall turned to Erwin in horror. It was you. Niall dash. You broke Kenny out of prison, Niall yelled at him. Before you continue this argument, I am making an offer to you, Megatron began. Give us any and all information about Zeke and his subordinates. No matter how small. Do this for us, and you will live to see another day of your pathetic life. Niall debated his options. Well, there wasn't much of a debate, it was literally do or die. Even if he told anyone, he doubted that anyone would believe him. Even then, he would most likely be hunted down like a dog. Niall turned to Erwin and glared at him. Give me 2 minutes alone with Erwin. Megatron responded by taking the bullets out of the rifle and throwing the weapon on the couch. Megatron grabbed Kenny by the collar and walked out the house. Kenny quietly mocked Erwin before Megatron shut the door. Erwin turned to Niall, who was completely pissed off at him. Niall dash. You've been lying, you broke Kenny out of prison, and you've been spying on military operations, Niall exclaimed. Niall, wait, Erwin pleaded. No. Fuck you. Niall cussed him out. Niall dash. Erwin hissed. You can't keep acting like an idiot. Nile exclaimed, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this stupid shit? Damn it. Nile dash. Stop." Nile shouted, "You're working with Kenny the Ripper and a Titan involved in a 4 million-year war. They want me dead if I don't comply. The flying Titan just tried to kill me. They are outside right now." Nile nudged his head to the window, and Erwin saw Kenny waving his dagger next to the broken window. "Nile, please." "No," Nile responded more calmly. "What are you trying to prove? Why are you throwing yourself back into the line of fire? You got out. Not many can say that. You got out of the war. You can continue living your life. You survived the onslaught of Titans. Why are you throwing yourself back into war?" "Nile, it's not as simple as that," Erwin reasoned. "Then make it simple," Nile demanded. "Why are you doing this?" "Penance," Erwin said quietly. "Penance?" Nile questioned. "There was nothing you could have done to stop your comrades' deaths." "I led them to their deaths on a lie," Erwin declared. I didn't lead on the idea to free humanity. I had my own selfish intentions of finding out those theories I told you back in the academy. I just wanted to know what was in the basement." "Then why lead in the first place?" Nile asked. "Your friends. The people we trained with. Mike is dead. Over a false promise." "I just wanted to get there," Erwin answered. "I just wanted to make up for my father's death over my idiocy. He was killed because of me. I had to try." "So now you suddenly have honest intentions, which cause you to work with the worst beings imaginable?" Nile rhetorically asked. "You can't just do that over a penance." "Nile, do you know how hard it is to go to sleep at night?" Erwin asked. "How it is to not close my eyes and see the bodies of people I led to their death? I've led almost everyone I ever knew to their deaths. I have to make it right." Nile was about to retort, but all he could see was the guilty look on Erwin's face. He had no idea. He would never truly know what Erwin is going through. "What if you're wrong about this?" Nile asked. "What if there's nothing to prove? What if someone finds out about this before you get enough evidence?" "Then I'll accept whatever comes my way," Erwin answered. "I'll accept my punishment." Nile was silent for a moment. He had so little options in this situation anyway, but helping Erwin and making sure that he doesn't get into trouble might actually be a good starting motivator. Nile groaned. "That's it. I'm helping you. Just to make sure you don't do anything stupid." "You will?" Erwin asked in slight surprise. Nile gestured to his current predicament. "I'm not given a lot of options right now." "Your 2 minutes are up," Megatron proclaimed as he and Kenny walked back into Erwin's home. "I don't have many choices right now, so I'll help you," Nile told him, "but I want ground rules to be set up." "You want ground rules?" Kenny cackled. "Well, I'm not really here of my own free will," Nile retorted. Megatron walked towards him and kneeled down to his face. "Understand this. If you tell anyone about this, your precious ground rules will be the least of your worries." Nile felt blood go back into his arms as Megatron ripped off the ties on them with ease. Nile quickly untied his legs before rubbing his arms from the pain. "Now, here is what you will do," Megatron began.
I'm glad you enjoyed that video / gameplay. Just remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Until next time, goodbye!